Hey, I am now going to show you guys how to pluck and shape your brows. I've gotten a few requests for such things, so um, it's pretty simple, and I know a lot of people are afraid to do it themselves, but I prefer to do it myself. I've always had issues with waxing. My skin's really sensitive, so I always would end up with scabs, or they would wax off too much, or there was just too many horror stories for me to continue doing that. So I decided to just stick to tweezing and doing it myself. And I think it turns out pretty good. So I'm going to show you guys how to go about doing that yourself. There are a few rules with the shape of your brow. One thing is that it's the ideal place for it to start in the front here is if you take a makeup brush, or this is a little disposable mascara wand, line up the inner corner of your eye with your brow like that. And that is where it should start. It should not go any further in than that. It could like a tiny bit, but you just want to keep a guideline where you really want to keep this nice and open here because nobody really digs the unibrow look. So that's number one. You want to make sure the inner corner lines up with the inner starting point of your brow. And the highest point of your brow should line up with the outside of your the color of your eye. So your pupil here. You line that up. It's kind of difficult to do while looking in here, but you look straight into a mirror and you'll line up the outside of your eye here, and that should line up with the highest point, okay? Just like that. Outside of the color, right up into the highest point. So you can see how that works. And what that does is it just opens your eyes up. So it's drawing the eye up and making it look like you have a little facelift. So that's where the highest point should be. And then where it should end is if you take the corner of your eye like this and run it diagonal to the temple, it should hit the end of your brow, which mine does right there. Not everybody's brows grow that long, so obviously you can't make hair appear where it's not there, so that's just a guideline for you for when you're filling in your brows. You'll just want to take that line all the way to that point. So that is the basic shape guidelines to a perfect brow. When you are now getting ready to actually do your shaping, I use my little disposable mascara wand, or you can use a little brow brush or something with stiff enough bristles to be able to work the hairs of your brow. And I brush everything upward, like this. And it starts to look all crazy and like woolly, but it's the best way to see everything you've got in there. So go against the natural growth of the hair, get it standing up. And it's kind of difficult to see every little hair on this screen, but when you're doing it in real life, you'll want to make sure that you have a magnifying mirror. That's going to make all the difference for you, like this here. And also make sure that you're in a room with really good light. I'm sitting in my dining room right now because it has the most natural light in my house, and it's just the best way to see everything. You'll know like when you're in your car or something looking in the little mirror and all of a sudden you see all these hairs that you didn't notice before, and it's because you're in bright daylight. So light has everything to do with it. Okay, so after you've brushed your hairs up, you'll want to kind of press your finger, or you can press the end of your brush here like this, and press the hairs down so that you can see every single individual hair really well. And the way the hair grows in the brow is it's in rows, if you notice. When you start looking close up at your brow, you'll notice that each little row of hairs grows in a nice line. So that's going to be your guideline of how to create a nice line for yourself. If you take one hair out of a row, you should most likely take out the entire row, and that will lift the eyebrow up. So if you had really thick brows, like mine go up like this, but if you had hair that came all the way down here, you'd want to keep taking them out in rows, one by one, like one row by one row, until you got up to the place that you desire, depending on how much arch you want. But that's the best way to keep a straight line. So when you're holding your brows up like this, it's going to be easy to see which hairs are not in the row. Usually if you've already been shaping your brows, there will be a few that will stand out immediately, the ones that have grown in. So you'll just kind of lift this up. I'm going to look into my magnifying mirror now because I can't see that well in here. Oh, one other thing, your tools here. Tweezers are a huge deal. You want to make sure you get the right tweezers, because if you don't, it's going to just slip right off the hair and you're going to be really frustrated and you're not going to be able to grab anything, and that's just always really annoying. So my favorite ones that I've come across, I've tried a bunch. I've tried Tweezer Man and everything, but I actually like this brand, Lacrosse, and it's got the little red pads here, and it just seems to have something with the tip that really grabs every hair. I've never had a problem with it. Once I couldn't find these, and I went to the store and I found these that I also did like, because it's a really similar design to this, but I have no idea what the name is. All it says on here is patented professional stainless Italy is all it says on here, but also got it at CVS or something. So this kind of style tweezer is what I like. You can tell they're both pretty much the same. Okay, so when you're going in to pluck your eyebrow hairs, you want to pull the skin nice and tight and pull those other hairs up out of the way so that you don't grab hairs that you don't want to pluck. So you pull it up and then grab your hairs. I'm just going to show you the technique here. You'll want to come at it kind of from the side, get to the base of the hair, grab and pluck. Okay, so I'm going to grab a few of these out of here. I only have a few stray hairs because I've been doing it for a while, and I try to maintain as often as I can so that I don't have to spend too much time on them. So then you do the same with the other eye. You make sure all the hairs are nice and up, and then I'll press my finger up like this and check to see where the hairs are that are out of place. And go in and pluck. And you also want a nice quick motion when you pull away, because that will make it come out faster with less pain. I'm not saying that there's no pain involved here, because you are pulling hairs out of your skin, but you get used to it after a while. Like, I don't really even feel it anymore, but if you're just starting, it might be a little alarming at first. One other thing that you want to do with your brow shape is you don't want any sort of like jagged incline when you're doing your arch here. You want to make sure that it all goes in a nice smooth line. It's nice and smooth from this angle up to here. Okay? It's not all of a sudden like thick and then up straight and then over or anything like that. You want to make sure it all kind of flows together. And you want to make sure that you go back and forth and check, you know, step back from the mirror and check that you're even, because that can be an issue as well when you're working on one brow for a long time. You kind of get carried away and forget, you know, that all of a sudden you've taken off half your brow and you really didn't need to. So patience is key. You want to make sure that take time with every hair that you pull out, because every hair really does matter, and one little hair that goes missing in the wrong place can look awful. So take your time, have the right tweezers, and follow those shaping guidelines, and you should be in pretty good shape, literally. So next thing is also trimming them. Mine get a little bit long, so after you've tweezed, you go back again and brush your hairs up. And the scissors that I like to use are actually cuticle scissors, like this, the ones that are curved, because they will go with the curve of the brow, which makes it nice and easy for you. So what I like to do, I'm gonna make sure all those hairs are sticking up, so you can see what you need to trim off. The only things you need to trim are the ends of the brow that seem to be sticking above your brow line. So again, you'll like kind of press down to see what you need to do. And you'll go back in there and just trim right off the top. Again, I'm going to look into my mirror here because I can't see well enough on there. But just go up and trim, trim, just like that. And maybe a little bit more on the inside there. Okay, and that just made it much cleaner and smoother. And I will do the same on this side. Make sure they're all brushed upward. And just trim on the ends. And just remember, less is more here. You may as well trim a smaller amount to start and then keep going back than getting carried away with it and chopping off all your brows. So be careful when you first start. Really just trim the ends of it. There you go. That's nice and trimmed. If you feel like that's not enough, you can also brush it downwards to see if you really need more, if there's a lot left in here. But for me, I think it all still looks pretty even. So I'm going to stick with that. The next thing you would do is fill them in with a pencil or shadow if you needed to once you started to do your makeup. And there's multiple options for that. You can use an angle brush like so, or a smaller one. Sometimes they make smaller ones that are a little bit more stiff that work really well. And you would just dip it into any sort of eyeshadow really that would be the right color. I always suggest going a shade or two lighter than your hair color, unless you're really light blonde. Then you just want to go pretty much with the color of your, like a shade lighter than the color of your roots, and that way it shows up but it's not super dark. But the reason I say go lighter, like if you have black hair, you don't want to use black. It'll just make them look like two caterpillars on your face. It'll look really weird. So always go a little bit lighter, and you'll be in good shape. Okay, and pencil-wise, I like these ones from Sephora actually. They're nice and thin, and they're waterproof, which is nice because you don't want your brows dripping down your face if you suddenly get caught in the rain or something. And they just crank up like this. They have a little brush on the end, and I like the colors, which is part of the main reason that I like them, because it's always, once you find a good color match for you, then you're kind of sold on it. So this one that I like for me is called Honey Blonde. It's number 1. And another one that I use on a lot of clients, because it's good for kind of any mid-range, people with brunettes or slightly darker than mine, is number 2, and that's Nutmeg Brown. So I believe they have a couple other color options as well, but those 2 are the ones I use the most. So as far as filling in goes, the way I start with it is I draw a line on the bottom of the inner part of the brow to get a nice clean line like that. Okay, so it's kind of like where I start. And then I make little wispy strokes upward to kind of mimic what real hair would look like, and do them quickly and lightly. I'm not going too hard here. And that's just to fill it in pretty naturally. It's also sort of hard to see there. Okay, so I'm following that line all the way up here. And those little tiny strokes I'm just doing on the inside of the brow here, all the way up to the top of the arch. Okay. Then when you get to the top of the arch, you're going to make that same kind of straight line like I did down here, but on the top of the brow. So your straightest lines are here to here, and then all of a sudden you come back to the top here to draw it up. And I make a nice line going over my arch, and then I make it straight from here down towards, in an angle, it would be towards like the top of my ear or towards my temple a little bit there. And you want to make sure you kind of have a little more pressure on the pencil here, and then release the pressure so that it gets thinner on the end. So more pressure and thin, so that it's like a wispy little thin end there. Nice point. Okay. So that is a nice smooth brow line there. Okay, and then I would want to do the same to the other eye. So I'm going to go on the bottom here, make my line. If you can see, there we go. My line, my little wisps. And then my other line starting from the top. And then pressure here and release down towards the end. I have a scar here, so it sometimes looks like I have a longer brow, but it's actually just shadow, so don't think I took it down that far. I'm only taking it to here, because if I check my angle, my temple to the outer corner here, it's going to end right there, which it does. Okay. Okay. So that is how you fill a brow in. Similar technique if you're using the angle brush. Same kind of thing, you'll make your line, you'll pull it up, and then you'll start at the top again and quickly pull out and make your nice tip. So it's the same thing there. And if you do it before you do the rest of your makeup, don't be alarmed if you think your brows stand out more than everything else, because it will all start to come together when you put on your eye makeup and everything else. Right now, when your brows are the only thing done on your face, it sometimes looks like a little scary, but as soon as you get your lashes and everything else in there, it all starts to just frame the eye nicely and turn out really lovely. So that's it. That's your brow tutorial from every step that I could think of. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or make comments, and I'll be happy to help. Thanks.